Now it's time to continue the actual handle. So from the base, we have already established that we've made a triangular shape to start this sort of background area. What we're going to do is we're going to work on the side perspective and the 3D perspective, and we're going to continue to use extrusion methods on the front faces of this to build the basic handle shape. I'm going to get rid of X-ray mode in this view because I want to basically get a good perspective of what's going on. Now we are slightly out of the actual shape, however I'm going to keep going and we can make amendments later. So we're going to do extrusions here, and the extrusions are not going to be done using this one. We're going to be using, second we press Command E, or we're going to be pressing W to make it go up directly instead. Now with this we are always going to be using, I'm going to be using press G and W pretty much consistently here, and I'm going to be doing an extrusion twice for each point. So that's the first one, and then with that I'm going to be using R with the global to expand it. Then I'm going to be going G to extrude again, W to make it move vertically instead, R to shrink it back down to the regular size, and then G to start the extrusion again, and then W to make it go straight. So I'm going to keep doing that until I get the rough shape and length of the handle. Stopping every single time there is a new bevel in the leather shape. now that we've got to the end of the leather wrapped section of the handle, I'm going to put it back on X-ray mode and then grab the vertex selection and then bring that middle section back down to a nice flatter shape, or even a curved shape in the other direction. Following that, since we made some dramatic changes, I'm also going to save it as an additional file and have it as a backup file. My 5th version of the project. With that saved, I'm now then going to try and shape this cone shape. To do that, it's the same as before. We go back to the face mode, which should already be selected. I'll go G. Oh, G is, nope, go Control E. See if it'll let me do it. I think it does. This time we're going to go W, the same as we did before, but this time we're going to make it 2 interval stages. We're going to do this as the first stage and expand it out with R at the global scale to make it a rounded shape. I'm then going to go to the vertex, and this time at this area in the center vertex I'm going to make it flat. Going to go back to the selection of the faces, press extrusion on it again in the W perspective, bring it up and global out, G to repeat the last tool, W to bring it up slightly, G again, bring it up just slightly more, and this time we're going to do a couple where we'll, with the R, we're going to do the global to bring it in a little bit, G, one more extrusion to finish it off, go in the center, R, and then bring it to a close. So let's have a little look at how that went so far in the 3D perspective view. I think it might look a little bit, oh, I'm pretty happy with that. Like, I can see that it's done a pretty good job. And then we have a Thor-ish hammer. Now we have this really rigid, and I know straight away that these need more extrusion lines to define those hard edges. So if we go to object mode, we're going to see it's going to round off probably too dramatically straight away. So in this one view, we can see it's hard, but if we go to softer view, it's stylized for sure, and it's kind of still kind of cool, but it's not what we're after. So what we're going to do is, on each of these corresponding lines, they're curving from one point to the curve line to the end point. We need more defined edges on them to define that hard shape. So we're going to go to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. Straight away, I want to define that this metal area is going to have an additional spot. I'm going to bring that finer in. I need to change these vertices to actually clearly define what's happening there. They're just following the shape that it was before, and I'm not too happy with that. So I'm going to grab these two and these two with a shift, select, drag and select, bring that up, and that should be a bit sharper now on that edge. I'm then going to go back to Mesh Tools and go into Edge Loop, and then on every one of these I'm going to apply 2 more edge loops, one on either side on the outside of these ridges. Now to me it doesn't matter too much if the outside is rounded, because that's sort of the shape of the handle anyways. So I'm going to keep that with as a lesser edged or polyed shape. Oh, did it on the inside, not what I intended to do, so I'm going to go back, do it on the outside instead. Just little things that can happen. hopefully when this is done with this point, it will retain a better shape and won't have that abstracted handle look as it did before. The waves will go away and these will retain its shape a bit better. So we'll go back into 3D view. We're going to go into object mode, select our shape. I'm going to hide those background layers for the time being so we can have a look. I'm on the solid view here. Now I'm going to go seem to have accidentally created an edge. So I'm just going to double click it and delete it. Now when you're deleting accidental edges, what's going to happen is those edges will be gone, but the vertexes will still be there. So you need to highlight them. If there's edges there and they're connected, they will not delete when you do this. However, since these ones aren't connected to anything, they will delete those middle sections when I click that, and that'll save you a lot of trouble. Object mode, click the 3 to see the rounded shape, and we got a bit better of a pattern there, much more clearly defined now with those ridges. Let's check that in comparison to the back view, and I think that's pretty close. Doesn't look too bad, and I'm pretty content with how that looks right now. Now I can see that some are definitely more defined than others, and what that basically means is those middle edge lines there, we just need to send them further out, or we can add an additional edge line here again, but I'm okay with it at this stage. So what I'm noticing when we're on that smooth mode, this area here is pulling it too much of a curve. So we can apply an additional edge around there. I'm going to say we do it on this side so we don't actually add too much edge loops to the main shape. So insert edge loop, and we'll do it on the inside of the shape here, and we'll do two additional here, one additional here, and one additional here. As you can see, the computer I'm using right now is going a bit slow. I'm out of memory making these videos and using this at once, so a lot of high demand on the computer. But to make sure that our files are always safe, it's good just to press Command S or Control S every now and then to make sure your file's saved. Back on the object mode, just clicking away, and now I can see clearly that that's a nice definition there. Round it off, and then you can see it's nice and smooth, has that sort of harder edge, there's no curve that was showing before, and it's clear and sharp and clean. Now I've just noticed the bevel here where it sticks out more, and ours is too smooth. So we're going to create that a little bit. To do that, what we're going to do is we're going to add another edge loop right here. Okay, and now we can either extrude this middle line of faces or just simply pull them out a little bit. And I'm going to say we just choose to stretch them out a little bit. So I've selected one, double tapped the next one, and it's wrapped all the way around it. I'm going to use the R function to scale it out, and that's just going to pull it out a little bit to make sure it shapes. With that bevel, see how it goes further up. We need to now adjust all the other ones a little bit. So I'm going to go on the edge mode on the one above, double tap it and expand that out a little bit as well. And we will need one more edge loop just below here to make sure that's a nice rigid shape. And we smooth that out now on the 3 perspective smooth mode, we can see that we have that nice bevel now. So at this stage I'm pretty content and pretty happy with how it's turning out. What we got to do, one more thing, is we have to shape the top or bottom, depending on what your perspective is, area of this. Now if we look at the reference image, we can see through the pixelation it has a edge here, then it goes in slightly, second edge, and then it has one final edge on the top. So to do this, we will go to top view firstly, put it back into 1 point perspective, face select, actually I might go side view, it might be easier to get an understanding of what I'm trying to do. And before we do any extrusions, we're going to have to get these vertices back in a flat arrangement. Alternatively, instead of doing extrusions, we could just add additional edge loops, but it'll be easier to get them symmetrical through extrusions. So I'm going to make sure there's 2 additional faces. We have that a nice flat perspective now. And I'm going to grab the faces on the top, making single clicks and holding shift. Now just going around the object to make sure I haven't selected anywhere else. No, it looks okay. So I'm going to extrude it with Command E. And I'm going to do this in the side perspective just so it's nice and clean and clear what I'm actually doing. I'm going to go up 1 value first. Just to make a clear edge. I'm going to go up again, repeating the same tool as last time. Almost at the end of this model, which would be good, so I can shut the laptop down as it's really struggling at this point for me. I'm then going to drag that next section in. Remember those 2 steps. So the first one, we're going to need to do an edge. bring that up as a second edge. We're going to do an additional extrusion here. This time we're going to bring this up, pressing R to scale it in. We're going to do, this is the last step on the end of the handle. We're going to do 2 extrusions to ensure that it's nice and sharp. I find it a little bit easier with the lag I'm getting if I use the W option rather than the extrusion option. And on that final one, extrusion, with the repeated tool, Command G, W, in, R to scale it, and then I'm going to bring it in nice and close. Finally, I need a couple edge loops around the areas here to cement those harder edges. I'm going to just do that one here. One here. I'm going to put one in the center as well, just so I can control a nice curve just by moving it a fractional up. Then I'm going to go back to the edge loop, put one on the inside here. Here and here, and that should do it. We will double check with the perspective view. Object mode 3. It's not too bad. Might be too sharp, but if it is, we can simply just round these vertices off a little bit. And that's not too hard to do. It's just selecting them from the outside and using the center pull to push it out a little bit more. And potentially grabbing these ones here and rounding it off slightly more as well. Let's go back to 3D view. Whoop. Object mode. Curve view. Click away. Save it for good measure. And we have our modeled Mjolnir Thor's hammer. Now, since this is the final version, and I'm pretty content, happy with that, I'm now going to do my save of it. as the 6th version. And next I'm going to start to unwrap the shape and texture the shape so we can render it in a 3D view and make it look a bit more realistic. But for now, this is the end of the modeling phase, and you know you're pretty much at the end when you can go into object mode and you can go in the blocky view and in the 3 view, and there's not much difference. Now the final thing we can do, alright, one, I would say that this is going to be a relatively low poly, maybe mid-length, mid-size poly shape. Okay. This is what you'd be printing at the blocky stage. If you wanted it as a super smooth finish, okay, and to get that as a permanent feature, you leave it as 1. I'm going to say this is a separate file when I do it. And you go to mesh and then go to smooth. Now what smooth is going to do is it's going to actually make it into a high poly shape with an algorithm that it does to make it sure it retains the smoothness. Now, without going into 3 mode to see its smooth finish features, we can see it now as a smooth finished object. That is how it's done as a high poly model. And that's how we're going to texture it too. You can go 3 mode now, but it really doesn't. This is going to make it super refined, but it does nothing now at all. So with the smooth one on, I'm going to make this our underscore smooth, just to define that I have my rough poly or low poly blocky version, and now I have my smooth version as well.